It's time for some straight talk. The big wireless companies charge a boatload for their superior network coverage. But guess what? Straight Talk uses the same cell towers but charges a lot less. Who knew? Well, now you do. And I do. So let's do something. It's time to switch to Straight Talk. Unlimited plans start as low as $35 a month on America's largest, most dependable networks. Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. A month equals 30 days. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
Here we are. We've been a little all over the map this morning, and it's only going to get worse because Stugotz is coming up in a minute.
Yeah.
We are Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests, like Stu and Schefter and Buck Showalter, in an hour all over the World Series and on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Again, as a brief aside, they're showing these classic Mike and Mike moments, which is a lot. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. It's fun to watch.
Great to relive a bit.
They just showed the first time we went on the Letterman show, and a variety of observations. One of them is that the projections that we were making, I was right. I said none of these guys, he was talking
Barry
about
Bonds
the steroid guys.
in the Hall of Fame.
That none
You were
would get
right.
in the Hall of
You're
Fame.
right
I
for
was
now.
right.
For now. But
Well,
you're right.
Pretty long time later. Second of all, I'm wearing a suit.
Yes, you are.
Nothing has ever summed up the difference between us better than that. We get invited on the Letterman show, which
do.
for both of us was a very big deal.
2006.
Yeah.
And our first of 11
Even for
times.
you, it was a big deal.
Oh, without question.
Mike, who never made a big deal about anything over our years together, and I, who made too big of a deal about everything, we were both very excited.
Very excited.
To be on Letterman because we both grew up loving him. I wore a suit.
Yes,
you
you
wore
did.
a shirt that said Dr. Pepper on it.
Yes, I did. And
which
khakis.
is hilarious to me. And I can't be the only one who is obsessed with how fat you
Fat. I looked like Jabba the Hutt sitting there.
I mean,
it was horrific. Another time on there, we ended up being on 11 times. I wore jeans, and Dave asked me if I lost my luggage.
That was funny.
Yeah, I was horrific. I don't look good in khakis. I don't look good fat. And I was both there. It was horrific.
It was. But it was fun.
It was fun because at the end, Dave asked us, as we were saying goodbye, did you guys, congratulations.
He's like, congratulations. Did you win something?
And to which I said, no, we won nothing. And to which I'm sure he was like, why the hell are you guys on this show?
That's it. If you hear the last question, they did a great job putting together the moment. Because you can hear, his question might as well have been, why the hell are you guys here?
Who canceled that you guys are here?
And that is what would happen. We wound up being on 11. We were invited 12 times. Once we got bumped.
And it was actually April Fool's, and we actually thought it was an April Fool's joke until we were in our cars on our way home that we thought we really got bumped.
I'm on the West Side Highway with my wife Stacy in the back of a car they provided for us, saying, I guess we're really not going
on. They're not turning around, are they?
At no point are they going to say, here, guys, we fooled you. But anyway, I forget the point I was going to make. But either way, I would say that of all the things we got to do from all of the success that you guys have given us, the fact that you guys have woken up and put us on, first the radio and then the TV and everything else, you're the reason we got to do all this stuff. Managing the celebrity softball games and playing in this and anything else we've done. Being on Letterman would have to be right near the top of the list.
I said the two things because now, when we ever do radio interviews, we're always asked, it's coming to the end of the show, what are some of the best guests or memories? Mine was Letterman and the White House.
Yeah.
I mean, going to the White House and doing the play-by-play and analyzing the T-ball game they have on the front lawn. And then having dinner that night and hearing George Bush as we're coming around the corner to get our picture going, Mike and Mike.
All right.
His wife Laura looking at him like, who the hell are these guys?
I know. Remember we had a whole thing that day where you were allowed to call him George. Golic wanted to call him George.
I wanted to call him George so bad instead of Mr. President.
Anyway, that was fun.
I still have the things I stole from the White House.
You don't even smoke, but you got ashtrays all over the place.
all over my house.
With American flags on them. Okay, Mike and Mike, we got Stugotz ready to go. Let me play you one soundbite from the World Series. Of all of them, this is my favorite because there's nothing better than Timmy Kirkchin waxing rhapsodic about a great baseball game, and he did a great job of it last night.
This, John, is why baseball is the greatest game. This is why you cannot take your eyes off of it because, again, something might happen that you just slap your forehead. I think I slapped my forehead 5 times tonight in extra innings alone.
Love hearing Timmy talk. And as an aside, I think the rule here on all studio shows should change. You should not wear a coat and tie anymore. He looked just fine in a beautiful polo. Buster Olney interviewed, who was it, Jose Altuve?
Altuve, yeah.
He had a polo on. They looked fine. And they still say incredibly great things I'm not affected at all by what they say because I don't have a coat and tie on. Let's change the dress system here.
Meanwhile, it was one of the great World Series games of all time. And with that thought and more, let's bring Stugotz from the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz every single morning, coast to coast, right after us here on ESPN Radio. Bring him into the conversation. I'm squinting because my monitor is a little far away. What is Stugotz? What are you wearing today, Stugotz?
I got a little Michigan pullover. I'm not a Michigan fan, but my niece just started at Michigan, so she sent me this great pullover here. And listen, it is a high of 75 in South Florida today, so everyone bundles up and puts their jackets on.
No, it looks great on you. It's
a lot warmer, obviously, in LA. So we have not spent the first 5 minutes of this hour talking about what was a thrilling Game 2 of the World Series. So let's do that here. Stugotz, of all the things last night, and again, there were a World Series record 8 home runs hit last night. It felt like all of them came in extra innings. Verlander's performance, Rich Hill getting pulled out of the game, Kenley Jansen failing to close, all the things and all the drama that came out of Game 2. What stood out for you the most?
Just a classic game, an absolute classic World Series game. I heard Golic on the way in, and Mike, this is one of the things we discussed with Trey last week, was Rich Hill. Like, why do these managers go into these games with a set amount of innings for their starter? Rich Hill was throwing well. He had it going last night, and they took him out after 4 innings. That's confusing to me. The managers go in with this set agenda of how many pitches these guys or how many innings these guys are going to pitch, and they stick to it, and it seems strange to me. I'd like to see starters go a bit longer here. Now, it did hurt them last night because the bullpen came in, and it wasn't until Jansen blew it in the 9th inning that the Dodgers really paid for going to that bullpen. But that's one of the things that stood out for me, just the fact that we have, I feel like these managers are kind of outsmarting themselves with all these relievers and using them in certain spots, and I guess it happened again last night. And then, guys, I just got thinking, Greeny, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this. I'm just thinking about Correa and Altuve and Springer, those guys up the middle for the Astros. I asked Jonah Kerry this earlier this week. Is there a team, if we project out just a little bit here, guys, is there a team whose next decade you would rather have than the Houston Astros? Because I can't think of one.
Well, here's the answer to that. I feel like we were saying exactly the same thing this time last year about the Cubs, and I think we were saying exactly the same thing 2 years ago this time about the Mets, who had this seemingly never-ending array of power pitching arms in their rotation. And then, the Cubs, I think, will be there for a while. The Mets, we've seen what happened with that. It all fell apart, and you're a fan of the Mets, so I knew that would be personal for you. But, yes, they're a great young team because they were the worst team in baseball. They stockpiled a bunch of high draft picks. They hit on the overwhelming majority of them, and that's how you become a great team in any sport today.
Yeah, and I guess that's a good point. I'm just thinking of those three. They're young. They're great players. Barring injury, I think this team could be really, really good. But you're right, it's baseball, and who knows with baseball. So, but it was a classic game last night. I really enjoyed that game. Just the ebbs and flows, the twists and turns. That's what October baseball is all about. And listen, fans have gotten what they want. This is what I was thinking last night, Mike, as this game went on. I was thinking Game 1, you got a 2-hour and 20-minute game. Fans love that, especially the younger fans. And then in Game 2, you got an absolute classic with, I think it was 8 home runs last night. So the fans have really gotten what they wanted here through 2 games. I'm excited for the rest of the series. I know people wanted Yankees and Dodgers, but Astros and Dodgers happens to be the better series because I think we can safely say, Mike, I know your Indians were great down the stretch, but a rare time in baseball where we have the absolute best 2 teams from start to finish matching up in the World Series.
Just to put a note on the top 4 hitters, Springer's 28, Bregman's 23, Altuve's 27, and Correa's 23. So certainly some youth there as well. If this goes 7, we'll love it. Who do you think is a better team?
I think the Astros are a better team. I think the Dodgers have slightly better pitching. I think the Astros just have better offense. And now the Astros go home. And listen, they got some stuff that they're playing for. Obviously, Houston with the storms and the flooding and everything there. So they got some of that behind them. I just think the Astros are a better offensive team. And I think ultimately the Astros are going to win out.
So do I. Both of us picked the Astros in 6, so we'll see where that goes from here. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests like Buck Showalter an hour from now talking about the World Series. He'll be on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Moving forward, they send us a little list of your topics of interest today, and one of them is Dwayne Wade coming off the bench in Cleveland. We all know about your history with Dwayne Wade and everything else being there in Miami. What are your thoughts on Wade now coming off the bench for the Cavaliers?
I just think the whole thing is funny to me that this was Dwayne Wade's decision. I don't think it was Dwayne Wade's decision at all. Like, I think they gave him the opportunity to make it appear like it was his decision, but I don't think this was Dwayne Wade's decision at all. I also don't think it was Tyronn Lue's decision at all. I think this gets down to what I've always told you guys. This was LeBron James's decision. He wanted to play with his best friend. His best friend got there. LeBron took a look at his best friend and said, wow, that guy's a little bit overweight. That guy's a little bit slow. That guy's not as good as the guy I played with down in Miami. That guy should not be starting here. I want that guy on the bench, and I want J.R. Smith to start with me. I don't think this is Wade going to Tyronn Lue. Dwayne Wade, man, I love him. He's a great player. He might be the greatest athlete Miami has ever had. Seriously, he might be. Better than Marino. But there's some ego there, guys. I'm telling you, because I've been around him and covered him for many, many years. Dwayne Wade did not go to Tyronn Lue and say, hey, 3 games in, by the way, and say, hey, you know what? I'd be better coming off the bench. Dwayne Wade went there to start, and the notion that Dwayne Wade wanted this is ridiculous. This is LeBron James wanting Dwayne Wade to come off the bench for the Cavaliers. And listen, maybe it will work out because maybe Dwayne against other teams' twos is going to be something that's good for Dwayne Wade, and maybe he'll be able to excel in that situation. But this is not a Dwayne Wade decision, nor a Tyronn Lue decision. This is a LeBron James decision, and I think that's kind of I was thinking about this as it happened. That's why Kyrie Irving wanted out of there. He was tired of LeBron making all the decisions on behalf of this organization, but that was not Dwayne Wade's decision.
When it comes down to crunch time for this team, and that means the playoffs, who do you think will produce more for Cleveland, Dwayne Wade or Derrick Rose?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Not Derrick Rose. I guess Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade because he's been there, Mike. And, I mean, why would we think Derrick Rose? I mean, what proof do we have that Derrick Rose is going to come up in a big spot? I have plenty of proof that Dwayne Wade can come up in big spots. He's won 3 NBA titles, won 1 without LeBron James, won the other 2 obviously with him. He's hit so many big shots for the Heat throughout his career. So I think Dwayne Wade, if he gets in shape in the postseason, can kind of sum it up a couple of big games and certainly be a guy that contributes down the stretch in big games for the Cavaliers in the playoffs.
Yeah, that to me was the question. Not so much is he going to start, but is he going to be on the floor when big games are being decided in the playoffs? And that, of course, remains to be seen. You know what? Here's another thing, Gotts. Here's where you've kind of seeped into you're like one of, you kind of seep into people's consciousness against their will and better judgment.
I have that effect on people, Greeny, yes.
When the Eric Bledsoe thing was happening and I was reading the story on social media, God help me, I thought of you.
Yeah.
I thought, who else but George Costanza and Stugotz would do the following. Right. Tweet, I don't want to be here anymore, and then have at the ready the explanation that he was in the salon with his, I don't know if it's his wife or his girlfriend or whoever it is that he was with, and didn't want to be there, and that's what he was talking about in a tweet with absolutely no context to it whatsoever. For the life of me, I don't know why, but it made me think of you, and I've not heard your take on the Eric Bledsoe
this is a good
story.
take. I heard what you talked about.
Let me hear it.
Because it's a plan that I would absolutely come up with. Like, if you're going to send that tweet out, everyone knows that Eric Bledsoe doesn't want to be there. He has already said that he doesn't want to be there. So when you send out that tweet, I don't want to be here, you have to send it from a place that is actually believable, that men can relate to. So he actually physically goes to a salon. I believe he was there, but I believe he only went to the salon so he could send out that tweet, so he could fall back on that excuse when everyone starts crushing him because they're trying to read into that tweet saying he wants to get out of Phoenix. He absolutely meant he wanted to get out of Phoenix, but and I believe LeBron James was behind this as well, by the way, because Rich Paul, LeBron's agent, and LeBron owns that agency, that is Eric Bledsoe's agent. So I think they told him, hey, tweet out because LeBron needs help. He has seen Wade and he has seen Rose and he is not happy with what he has looked at thus far, and he needs help and he wants Eric Bledsoe. So what did he do? He told Bledsoe, hey, take your girlfriend to the salon, and while you're there, tweet out you no longer want to be in Phoenix, and people will read into it that way, and you can always fall back on the excuse that, hey, I was just at the salon. What guy wants to sit at the salon waiting for his girlfriend to get their hair done? It's a perfect plan, well executed by Bledsoe.
Nobody wears a tinfoil cap better than Stugotz with his theories. I heard
do you guys believe that? Because I'm telling you, that's what happened. I am reporting with 100% certainty that is what happened.
I heard you guys talking about it, and I loved it. Let's move over to football. When Herm was in here, we were discussing, we played it. I'm sure you've heard it. Cam Newton rolling his eyes, not real happy with a question. Next question, then walks out of his presser. Overall, what do you think his issue is, and how can he get over it?
I think losing is his issue. I think being surrounded with teammates that aren't very good are his issue. I think we have a rare guy at quarterback, guys, from a physical standpoint, a guy who got to the Super Bowl basically by himself a couple of years ago, a year where Kelvin Benjamin went down. I think they're wasting the Cam Newton years. I think he's a rare talent. I think he's frustrated by that. I think the best offensive player they've surrounded him with is Kelvin Benjamin, and Kelvin Benjamin's a bit overweight as well. So I don't know, guys, it's weird because we mock these press conferences and these guys get in front of the media all the time. At least on our show we do. I mean, we have an entire segment dedicated to useless sound in the NFL. At least Cam Newton comes up there and he gives you the real Cam Newton. You might not like it, but it's the real Cam Newton. He's emotional. Sometimes he doesn't want to be there. Sometimes he's annoyed. Sometimes it's because of questions that are being asked of him. Sometimes it's because his team isn't playing very well. But at least you're getting raw and real Cam Newton. You're not getting, the same old cliche stuff that quarterbacks usually give you in that spot. So it is interesting. I don't think there's been a quarterback in the history of the NFL that has had more bad press conference moments than Cam Newton. But, guys, I just don't think he cares. And I think what we're getting, pretty much for the most part, is real emotion, is raw emotion, and I'm okay with that. I think we tend to overreact to how Cam Newton acts when he's standing in front of a podium, and he's just being real. He's being Cam Newton.
Mike and Stugotz. All right, let's do beef stew, and then we'll finish up with this shirt thing.
Okay.
But beef stew, do you
sound thrilled about that, Greeny, the shirt thing. You sound thrilled about it.
I don't even know what's going on here, so we'll try and get to the bottom of this. Here we go.
All right.
Beef stew. Do you have more beef with Clayton Kershaw in the postseason or with all the praise that he received for his Game 1 performance in the World Series?
With all the praise. I mean, I have an issue with Clayton Kershaw in the postseason, but he did pitch phenomenally in Game 1. He was awesome, and he closed out the series against the Cubs, although he was spotted a bunch of runs there, so that wasn't a big deal to me. I have an issue. Clayton Kershaw, guys, it goes without saying, Clayton Kershaw is maybe the greatest pitcher we've ever seen. And if he's not the greatest, he's certainly in the top 5. He's in that discussion. He's phenomenal. But the reality is, he's been horrible in the postseason. Horrible. And one start, Game 1 at home in the World Series, does not erase for me, and it did for a lot of people, and I was surprised by this, where all of a sudden Clayton Kershaw is a big game pitcher. No. Go look back at his postseason career. He has not been a great pitcher in the postseason. He just hasn't, and one game did not erase that for me. If Clayton Kershaw, and by no means does he want to impress me, but if he wants me to change my opinion, if he wants to impress me, if he wants to change my opinion about him being a good pitcher in the postseason, he'll go out and do it in a big spot on the road on 3 days rest. Down 3-2 in a big series, and he'll deliver a complete game shutout and keep the Dodgers series alive. That's what guys like Pettit did. That's what guys like Josh Beckett did. That's what guys like David Cohn did. I haven't seen Clayton Kershaw do that yet, and one start is certainly not going to erase the body of work he's had in the postseason, where his ERA is like 4.75. I'm sorry, one start did not erase that for me.
I want him to have the next great start in his presser after say, I hope I impress Stugotz.
Stugotz, yeah.
Hopefully with that we get.
Well, I mean, listen, he doesn't have to impress me, nor does he care about my opinion. But I'm just telling you, like, everyone who is salivating, Clayton Kershaw, big game, he has one good start in the postseason. That does not erase the 10 bad starts he's had.
All right, more beef with LeVar Ball's antics or those who continue to criticize him?
Those who continue to criticize him. First off, I'm not criticizing him one way or the other. I'm not forming opinions on LeVar Ball's parenting skills one way or the other. I just find them to be entertaining. The only opinion I care as it relates to LeVar Ball as a father is the opinion of his kids. And his kids love him. They swear by him. And I love what Scott Brooks said the other day, headed into that game last night, the Wizards and the Lakers, where he said, hey, I'm fine with LeVar Ball. My dad left me at 2. I want people to think about that for a second. Scott Brooks, the coach of the Wizards, my dad left me at 2, and we're complaining that LeVar Ball has put himself out there and is around his kids, supporting his kids, trying to create opportunity for himself and for his kids. At least he's there. At least he's a father that, the kids love and they respect. I have a hard time people judging from a million miles away on their couch the parenting skills of LeVar Ball. It's absurd. If you want to form your opinion on that, that's fine. Do me a favor. Go spend some real time with him and the kids when the camera's not on them and find out what kind of father he is. Until then, shut up. I don't want to hear it. You're commenting on a guy's parenting skills when his kids are sitting here telling you, hey, my dad's a great dad. He's around us all the time. He's been here since we're kids. He hasn't left us. He stands by our side. He supports us. That's the only opinion I want to hear, is the opinion of his kids. I don't care about anyone else's opinion.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm with you. I wouldn't criticize his parenting. I criticize his marketing and what he's doing for his company and how he's going about it. But it has nothing to do with his parenting. I don't think it's entertaining at all.
And speaking of marketing, the last topic that we have for you this morning is what happened here. You sent Brooksy, so Drew Brooks, who is the producer of our show here at Mike and Mike, you sent him a shirt, and he wore it on a date. What is going on here?
I didn't send Brooks anything. Brooks requested a Stugotz Army shirt that we have now. It's one of the promotional shirts that we're using for our show. Brooks, Stanzik, all the guys on your show requested that our producers send them Stugotz Army shirts. So Brooks sent me a text over the weekend. They did. I mean, I see them rolling their eyes, but they requested it. I didn't send it to them. They all requested it. Stanzik, I see you rolling your eyes over there. But here's the deal. I'm serious. Brooks sends me a weird text over the weekend saying, hey, look what shirt I'm wearing for date night. And it was the Stugotz Army shirt. And, I was proud. I'm honored that he wore that on date night. And then yesterday we all got into a weird group conversation where Brooks said, how much would you pay me if I get married in that shirt? And I said, why should I be paying you? You should be paying me. There are royalties involved with this stuff. And so I have no idea where this is headed. But it all got weird yesterday because Brooks got very upset at the notion that he would have to pay me and I wouldn't pay him to wear that shirt on his big day, on his marriage. Now, I don't know if I'm breaking news here. I don't know if Brooks is planning on getting engaged or not. But
and
I like to think that I helped close the deal.
Yeah,
he
is already engaged. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Well,
he's already engaged.
I have my own little Brooksy story, by the way. Want to hear my Brooksy story? I sent him a note and I said, do you want to go play golf? I sent him a text with a date. You want to go play golf? He writes me back, I can't. I have to go to a birthday party. So I wrote him back, are you 9? I mean, what does that mean?
You know exactly what it means.
What adult has to go to a birthday party? He doesn't have kids. He's engaged.
Well, whose birthday party was it? But whose birthday was it? Was it an adult birthday?
It doesn't matter. If it's his fiancé says we're going to this birthday party, then he has a birthday party to go to. That end of story.
Who has a birthday party?
I don't know, but as long as she said that's what
What's the last time you had a birthday party? You're a 50-something-year-old man.
It's a great point, Greeny. It's a great point, Greeny. It's a good point, Mike.
Are they sitting around and blowing out candles?
If Chris told me today, hey, we're going to a birthday party Saturday night, I would say I wouldn't even ask for the particulars. I would just say, okay, we're going to a birthday party Saturday night.
And here's the deal with that. Like Brooks, no, that's a bad job by Brooks because when she's your fiance, you have not tied the knot yet. She cannot take golf away from you now because I promise you, once you tie the knot and get married, all she'll do is take golf away from you. That is it. All right? So you don't do it now, Brooks. You get as many rounds in as you can until you tie the knot. That is it. That is a horrible job by Brooks. I'm with Greeny on this.
Stugotz, until it goes the other way, because you play a ton of golf, you're to the point in your marriage where your wife wants you out of the house to go play golf.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Pushing me out of the house, Mike. Like when I get home, she has the golf cart revved up with the clubs on the bed. I mean, I'm serious. With the clubs on the cart, she's like, get the heck out of here. I don't want you around. I'm serious. Pushing me out of the house.
All right,
because she doesn't want me sitting there because she's on the internet the entire time on Zappos.com buying shoes for everyone, and she doesn't want me around seeing it because she knows I'll put a stop to it. So she sends me out to my happy place. Which
we're
is the golf
done
course.
with the therapy session here, okay?
Seriously. Well done, as always. Stugotz and Company live every single morning after us here on ESPN Radio. Thank you, Stu.
Thanks, Stu.
All right, guys. And both of you guys have aged gracefully, man. I looked at that clip with Letterman. Mike Golic, you have aged well. Greeny, you have aged well. Shockingly, David Letterman has not aged well. But you two are doing great.
Thank
you, God.
Computer, execute 12.4p operation.
Optimizing algorithm. Running encryption packet alpha 990. Oh, I don't feel so good.
What is it, computer?
Is it hot in here? It feels hot in here? I feel a little clammy. I should lie down or something.
A computer with a virus? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Those oysters Rockefeller were a mistake.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
All right, we are Mike and Mike. Craig Biggio tomorrow at this time. One of the legendary Astros as the series shifts to Houston. Right now at this time, the legendary Adam Schefter is in our studio typing away as we speak. Good morning, Schefter.
Good morning, gentlemen. How you doing?
We are good. And obviously the trade deadline's around the corner, and there's a lot of talk about that. And that brings us directly to Martavis Bryant, who has made no secret of his desire to get out of Pittsburgh, and the Steelers have made no secret of their displeasure with how he chose to handle that. We've talked about it a lot this morning. They're benching him for the game, and he was running scout team and all of that. Yeah. When all is said and done, what were you hearing from around the league on this? Is there any conceivable chance that Bryant gets his wish and gets out of Pittsburgh?
First of all, I'm amazed that there's been this much conversation about somebody who's done so little. It's amazing to me. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you're Pittsburgh, you don't know when you might need this guy, when you have a season going the way you do. So, to me, you put him on scout team, you deactivate him. It doesn't really matter. He's going to have more value. What is another team Let's say the Chicago Bears, hypothetically, okay?
That's my example.
Okay, who gave up a conditional 7th-round draft pick for Dontrell Inman yesterday.
Right.
Let's say the Chicago Bears wanted to trade for Martavis Bryant. Realistically, objectively, what would the Bears be willing to give up for him? You tell me, Greeny.
A 5, a
okay,
6.
Okay. Now, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, let's call it a 5, which I don't think the Bears would do. Let's say it's a 5. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, why would you trade Martavis Bryant in late October when you could trade him in the offseason for that same 5 and you have his rights this year in the event that you have any injuries to any wide receivers and you might have the chance that this guy, who's a big play receiver, can come back later in the postseason? Why would you give this guy anything that he wants when he hasn't obliged by the terms of your program? He's come back. Listen, I don't mean to sound harsh about it, but the players are the team's rights. The teams are going to do what's best for them, not what's best for the player.
I 100% agree. That's exactly what I said. Why would you trade him? This guy can still give you something on the field. Why would you?
And if you want to trade him, you trade him in the offseason.
Exactly right. I completely agree that there's the power the NBA players have. Don't even try and confuse it with all of a sudden pro athletes have power. It's not that way in the NFL, especially if you're a player that isn't a great player, one of the better players, at his position in the league. So is there going to be anybody, do we think, that the trade deadline is the least talked about
in the
NFL? So.
Let me say this. Last year, I think there were 4 trades right before the deadline. 3 of them involved the Patriots, making up the bottom of their roster, which typically they do. I think we could see a couple of things. But the NFL is it's not baseball. It's not basketball. We don't see that level of activity. Saying that, I know there will be teams that make calls. There already are teams that are making calls. You look at teams like Arizona that just lost its quarterback, San Francisco that's winless. The Jets, I think, are open to making trades right now.
Matt Forte?
That would be a logical one. Look, the way it was explained to me, the Jets are listening. They're willing to listen. But again, you're not just going to trade. And let's just say, as an example, a wide receiver. It's hard in football to go trade for a wide receiver. Martavis Bryant. Chicago trades for Martavis Bryant. Now you acquire him in week 8. How much time is it going to take for him to learn that system, get chemistry with Trubisky, get him up to speed? It's just difficult to get that done, which is why you don't see as many trades in football. I love trades. But they just don't come along that often. I think that we'll probably see a couple of little things by next week. Maybe we'll be surprised and get something bigger. I would love that. Dwayne Brown has been out there, the Houston Texans left tackle. I still think he would like to be traded. I think the Texans have not shown any interest in trading him. So it would be up to some team to offer a really strong package to get Houston to change its mind to trade him. Again, I think the player would like that. The team right now, for what it's worth, says it's not interested.
Mike Schefter is in our studio. So trade deadline on the way. We'll see if anything of consequence winds up happening. And one of the situations I think is the most interesting is the Giants. This is a team that did not expect to find itself where it is right now. And the season's been a disaster on so many different levels, including, of course, the injury to Odell Beckham Jr. So you have Jerry Reese having his press conference this week, much talked about, and we'll see what his future is beyond this year. We'll see what the future is of Ben McAdoo beyond this year. To me, the most interesting piece is what's the future of Eli Manning beyond this year? It could be a team that winds up at the very top of a draft that has a lot of really big-time quarterbacks in it. Manning has not been playing extremely well for the last 2 years or thereabouts. He's getting up in age. What do you think the future looks like for Eli Manning?
But let me say this to you, that we are looking at an offseason that is going to be very unusual in the NFL. An offseason that I don't think we've seen in a very long time, if ever. Drew Brees' contract is up. He can't be franchised. Jimmy Garoppolo is scheduled to be a free agent. Kirk Cousins has been tagged twice and is scheduled to be a free agent. We've got a great draft class of quarterbacks. Sam Bradford's contract's up. Teddy Bridgewater's contract's up. There are all of a sudden all these quarterbacks that are appealing in different ways that are attractive. And now you throw a guy like Eli Manning into that mix. Again, I don't think it's not the Giants' way to trade him. Eli's been very outspoken, and you wouldn't expect anything different about saying, he wants to be a Giant. He doesn't want to finish his career anywhere else, and I believe him. And it's not like that franchise to go make a move like that. And when you're in a division, as they are, with Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins for the time being, you've got the worst quarterback situation long-term of any of those teams by a landslide. Now, Washington maybe is in a tough spot with Kirk Cousins, but at least they have him right now, and if they franchise him or sign him to a long-term deal, which I think is going to be tough, they would be right there.
So just a long-range question, just because you mentioned him and it just popped into my mind. Jimmy Garoppolo, Kirk Cousins, Drew Brees. Next year, will they all be starting for different teams than they're on right now?
Wow, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go one by one. And I'm going to surprise you with my answers.
Okay. I like the tease.
I think Jimmy Garoppolo is back in New England.
Me too.
One way or another.
Okay.
I think Kirk Cousins leaves. One way or another. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a real chance that Drew Brees winds up leaving New Orleans.
Now,
which I know would surprise people.
Yeah. I would have thought the same thing. And I first and foremost, I would defer to you because you're talking to people that I'm not. But what I would say is they're winning. So if it could change a few things.
Well,
I
here's
didn't
the thing.
see them
Here's
having
the
the
thing.
season they're having or the division going the way it's going right now.
Listen, there are a few players in the league, maybe none, who have meant more to their city than Drew Brees has meant to New Orleans.
Right.
And there's a real affection from both sides. But I think he's going to be 39 next year. It's going to be a big number. And, there's always questions in New Orleans. They're having a great season right now. They're going to make a real run here. So they don't want to talk about this, but we can talk about it.
Sure we can.
And I just think there's a question with them not having the ability to franchise him. Are they going to be willing to do what it takes? I don't know that. And so there might be another team out there that values Drew Brees more than the Saints do, as hard as that is to imagine.
Be very interesting to watch. Let's take a break on that thought. We have a million things to get to with Schefter today, including the way in which his social media account was taken advantage of by someone near and dear to
Truly
our hearts.
Was hacked.
It was.
I'll tell you a few funny stories about that.
Yes, we will get them all coming up next with Schefter in our studio. And Schefter, you walked away from a computer, it sounds like, on Monday, and somehow Trey Wingo managed to get himself in front of it. And the next thing you know, their anchorman quote's going up on the most followed account in the entire world of sports. What happened here?
Well, you know what happened? I was sitting in the green room at one point in time on Monday afternoon. All of a sudden, all these messages started coming into my phone. I'm going, what's going on? And the first one came from Nita, our social media director here at ESPN, who does a great job. And she goes, did you tweet this? And I never like to see that because it's happened a couple of times.
Oh, yeah.
And what happened was about 4 or 5 years ago, Tim Hasselbeck and Mort went over to my computer and began posting messages, and our vaunted leader, Seth Markman, sent out a memo that said no more messages, no more tweeting on unattended computers. And that lasted, 4 or 5 years until Trey Wingo basically walked over to my computer.
You're naming names.
And basically began tweeting a line from Anchorman about
I love
scotch.
Scotch. Here it goes down into my belly.
Yeah.
Now, I can tell you this. I don't drink scotch. I don't really drink at all. I don't tweet funny things. I try not to be cute in my Twitter account. I try to stay in my lane. So that would have been a very peculiar tweet.
It took a lot of us by surprise.
Coming from me. So right away, the first thing I did was I texted Tim and I texted Trey. And I said, did you tweet this? And Tim's response was no, and Trey's was, I cannot confirm or deny.
Oh, there you go.
Which, I can tell you this, when you hear you cannot confirm or deny from a source, you know
That's it.
they are confirming right then and there. And so Trey Wingo was the guilty culprit. And
So basically, are you saying starting November 27th, when it's Golic and Wingo here on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, that I should not leave an open computer or my phone around him?
Well, I've had people around the NFL already plotting with me to get back at Trey Wingo. So
okay,
you can
I'll be
leave
in on that if you'd like.
You can leave your computer, but I'll let you know. We might have something for Trey here.
I like that.
We're not done yet.
All right, so we got all of that and a whole lot more. You got to keep an eye on these things around here. All right, a few other things. Jay Cutler injured. Matt Moore starting tonight for the Dolphins. How would you assess the chance that Moore keeps that job? Just watching that one game on Sunday, he was so much better than Cutler has been, frankly, at any point this season in the second half of the game against the Jets. Do you think he has a chance to keep that job?
I think he has a chance. If you go back and look at his numbers last year when he replaced Ryan Tannehill, his numbers were vastly better than Ryan Tannehill's. And if he produces the way he did Sunday and they're winning, it gets hard to bench him. Why are you going to bench a guy if he's producing and they're winning? If they're not winning and he's not producing, it becomes simple. That decision will become obvious over time. The way it was explained was Cutler's going to be out 2-3 games here. And if indeed he is, and Matt Moore is playing well, then we've got a situation there where, we'll see how that shakes out. But I think he's got an opportunity to try to extend his playing time, which is all you could really ask at this point.
Seen a lot of bad injuries. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers, Joe Thomas, Jason Peters, to name a few that are seasons. are basically over. You look at Leonard Fournette, who's got the foot, and that offense is so dependent on him running the ball. What's the thought going on there? I mean, there's a thought of not doing too much to protect him, to don't overdo it, and the thought of we need this guy out on the football field.
Well, listen, I think part of the thinking last week was he wanted to play. On Saturday morning, he went to the walkthrough practice and didn't feel great. Saturday night in Indy, he felt great. He's like, I'm ready to go on Sunday. And they wanted to test him pregame, and they just said, you know what, we've got the bye week coming up. Let's give him an extra week off here, rest him up. I would be surprised if Leonard Fournette were not back after the bye, considering that it was fairly close. He was going to play against the Colts.
And they wound up winning in a huge fashion without him, so couldn't have worked out better to give him the opportunity to rest. Mike and Mike, the Know Them From Adam podcast every single week. This week you've got Bill O'Brien. You've got, Bill O'Brien, the guest, this talking about Saquon Barkley, whom he brought to Penn State, and talking about Deshaun Watson, whom he brought to Houston.
He recruited Saquon Barkley to Penn State, had a role in that. And, of course, he drafted Deshaun Watson with Rick Smith, who he kept crediting with making that selection, but just reliving everything that went up to that and the pick that I think changed that franchise here for the next dozen or so years.
And I hate to keep bringing it up because it feels like we're just pounding on a dead horse here, but it feels like it's impossible to ignore, and that is every time you bring up Deshaun Watson, who's looking right now like the Rookie of the Year, and every time you bring up Carson Wentz, who's looking like a significant candidate for MVP of the league, you bring up the fact that the Browns had the opportunity to draft both of those quarterbacks and trade it out, and now they are ping-ponging back and forth their starter on a weekly basis with this rookie that they take out of Notre Dame. What in the world is going on there in Cleveland?
That's a tough situation because it's got to be hard to just know your season's going the way it is. But then when you lose on Sunday to Tennessee, which is bad in and of itself, and you still haven't won a game, which is bad in and of itself, and then you watch Carson Wentz on Monday night. I mean, they said that they didn't view him as a top 20 quarterback. Now, I don't know if they meant top 20 of all time or just top 20 quarterback. Because on Monday night, he looked like the best young quarterback in the game with a chance to become one of the 20 best quarterbacks of all time. That's how he looked to me. He was making plays that were a cross between John Elway and Ben Roethlisberger. And I don't want to get too carried away, but you don't see quarterbacks make the kind of plays that he was making. And this guy gets it. He cares. He wants to be great. He already is great, to be quite frank. And he's going to get better and better. And every time he plays a game like that or makes a play like that, it's hard not to think that his rights were traded away to the Philadelphia Eagles. And this is a league where you either have a quarterback and have a chance or don't have a quarterback and don't have a chance. And since the Browns have been back in Cleveland in 1999, they've had, 28 different starting quarterbacks? Yeah. They haven't had a quarterback and they haven't had a chance. And they've traded away I mean, it just speaks for itself. I don't have to say anything.
It does, and they just have no weapons out there. The holster's empty. Is Hugh Jackson in trouble? I mean, he almost should. Now, you could question the yo-yoing of quarterbacks, but holy smokes. I mean.
Again, I think you have to see I think their process is in trouble because they haven't done this the right way. So what do they change? I could say this. I don't know whether it's the head coach, whether there are changes in the front office, but something has to change. You can't go through two drafts and trade away Carson Wentz, trade away Deshaun Watson, not have a quarterback, and think that everything's going to be status quo.
And they have so many draft picks coming up as well.
It is an incredible statistic that they are 1-22 now in their last two seasons, and this entire year they have run 2 snaps with the lead.
It's got to be really discouraging to be a Browns fan or a part of it. Really, I feel bad for everybody there. It's hard.
Horrendous. Schefter, you're the best. Thank you very much. Keep an eye on your computer. Buck Showalter live next on a thrilling Game 2. Don't miss it. Mike and Mike.